you guys. So good to see you. Thanks again for giving me a chance to share some of these thoughts and ideas. And I'd like to continue today on the topic of leadership. And so that was what we started getting into in the last session, and building on this progression from working on ourselves to leadership and improving our capability to influence, guide others. Leadership's one of these funny topics. It's so popular in the business world, right? Because everybody wants to be a better leader, and I don't know, maybe they want to get promoted or just do a better job, helping to run their organization. But there's a sense in which we're all leading in different ways. I think about walking my dog. Actually, my dog leads me when we walk, just moving very slowly. Simple form of leadership. But leadership really just means, how are we having an influence on the people around us? I mean, literally leadership just means influence. So we're always kind of, leading a conversation or leading the mood when we interact with somebody. If we're with just one other person or a small group, there's leadership that's happening in every situation. Have you ever noticed how if there's two people talking and a third person comes into the conversation shifts, changes, right? Like, just brings a different kind of energy to it. So we're all influencing each other all the time. The idea with leadership is to have an influence that is intentional, and have an influence that is beneficial, and have an influence that's stable and helping ourselves and others move in a desirable direction. So on Saturday, I introduced how leadership really depends on compassion, and compassion depends on having empathy and aligning our motivations with the motivations of others. So I thought we could do some similar meditation to what we did on Saturday, really trying to reflect on the experience of receiving kindness. Who in our life or in our world have we received some kindness and benefit from, to activate that wish to give kindness back, and to have that benevolent motivation that's really the root of leadership, of good leadership, of wise leadership. All right. So as usual, we're going to take a few minutes just to settle in with meditation. So at the beginning, we can stretch our neck, our shoulders a little bit, find a comfortable position. Whatever will help you to relax and settle in, then we just take a deep breath. And taking a deep breath, that stretches us internally, right? We're stretching our chest, stretching our belly, and we're resetting. Gives us a chance to reset a little bit. There's so much tension we may accumulate over the course of our day. So deep breath in and out. And then another deep breath, and just invite ourselves to relax. Feel a sense of relaxation. And with our third breath, we just ask ourselves, what is important now? And then we can begin by recalling someone in our life who has been kind to us or helped us in some way. We just try to recall that. And in particular, we recall the feeling of receiving kindness, receiving benefit from others. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for others' kindness, others' help. You just think, who's helped us to get here where we are today? We try to feel this in our body. Try to notice, where in our body do we feel kindness? Where do we experience kindness in our body? And we let that experience of kindness build in us a feeling, a wish to pay that kindness back, pay it forward to someone else, to participate in the flow of kindness, to pass it on. And we can think through our brief time together tonight, may we increase our ability to repay the kindness of others. May we increase our capacity to help. Then we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation. Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk a bit more about leadership today. And just again, looking at this concept of what is leadership, what does that mean? And and how does it work? How does it operate in our mind? So this phrase "leadership just means influence" is something that I first heard in a leadership book by a guy named John Maxwell. He's a popular leadership writer that I read many years ago. Leadership just means influence. Now, what's interesting, though, is that we know we're being influenced all the time, right? So we're being influenced by advertisements. We're being influenced by our the internalized beliefs that we've received from our parents. We're being influenced by our biology, our sort of genetic tendencies. We're being influenced by the people around us. So it's interesting in a sense. We're like being constantly influenced without realizing it. So we're being led in a sense. We tend to think of ourselves as individuals, but that's not really true at all. Like we're kind of, and so what's an individual? An individual is like this little atomic being that has free will and kind of moves around and is 100% in control of their own decisions and where they go. And that's an individual. They're indivisible, and they have real free will and autonomy and so forth. We don't have that. Nothing has that. Nothing has ever had that. That we're really so. I guess just to tell a story about advertisements, right? I hate advertisements. I've hated advertisements since I was a little child. I'm in the marketing department, right? My job is now to create advertisements. My job. The irony is not lost on me, I assure you. So as I've tried to, I'm trying to make peace with the fact that my world now, I'm in the marketing department and I'm sort of doing this thing that I'm very uncomfortable with. And what's helping me to make peace with that is realizing that there's never been, even though I stop watching TV, I don't look at like advertisements when I'm walking around, I try not to like shop and be exposed to all this kinds of stuff because I don't want I don't want my behavior to be controlled. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to waste all my money, all that stuff. But nevertheless, I've been marketed to my entire life. My parents were marketing the benefits of going to school. I never really totally was convinced, but my teachers were marketing the benefits of learning this subject. And when I studied spiritual teachings, basically like 80% of the spiritual teachings that I studied, they're all like marketing the benefits of inner peace, marketing the benefits of compassion, so forth. And so now, again, I find myself in the business of marketing the benefits of inner peace, marketing the benefits of compassion. This is actually just one prolonged advertisement. However, there's one difference, which I'm not asking for money. What am I doing? I'm advertising your own potential. I'm advertising your own inner potential. I'm speaking on behalf of your inner potential for peace, on behalf of your inner potential for confidence, for inner strength, for loving kindness, all these kinds of things. So this is a public service announcement from the depths of your own mind and being. that's at least how I'd like to imagine myself, right? So what I did, I didn't separate myself from advertisements. What I did is I just was selective about what I allowed to influence me. I tried to tune out the advertisements, and I tried to listen to things that I found inspiring, and including technical teachers and so forth that helped me to learn some technical skills. And so I've just been selective, and so we can be selective about what influences us, but we can't be free from being influenced. So how does that relate to leadership? What it means is that we're leading each other all the time. There's leadership happening all the time. And we can try to offer beneficial influence on the people around us. And more people may come increasingly under our influence, may come to decide that we're more helpful, as an influence than other people around them. For example, we have more useful advice, so they may come to listen to us a bit more than they did before. And so that's what's called increasing your influence, or increasing the sphere of your influence, increasing your the power of your leadership. But whether we're leading our dog or just leading our kids or friends, or we're always in some position where we have an influence. Now the point is we want to have a beneficial influence. So over the last number of years that I've been in the working world, the business world, I work in tech companies and so forth. I've had many people comment to me that they feel, more peaceful, like when I come on the call or something like that. And I'm like, oh, really? I didn't know. I wasn't intending to, right? But what's happened is because for a long time I had this discipline, okay, don't panic. And if you panic, don't show that you're panicking. And if you're panicking, just let it settle down and try to be peaceful and calm. No matter what happens, don't panic. Like, this is my ethic, my discipline. So the way people see that, experience that, is I come across as a bit more peaceful than some other people. And what's happened, if they say, hey, when you come on the call, I'm a little bit more peaceful. It's nice, sort of nice, soothing voice and all this kind of stuff. So actually, I was having an influence without realizing it. There was an episode at the beginning of the year where I made an honest statement in a business deal meeting, and that caused some people to think, oh no, he's caused us to lose this deal by being honest and so forth. And so then later they were sort of blaming me, and then they came back to me that they were blaming me for losing the deal. And so I'm like, my reaction to that was, oh, I'm sorry. But I didn't get defensive, right? I didn't get like, well, it's not my fault and so forth. And so what happened is that actually also influenced them, because then they thought, oh, this guy's unusual, right? He didn't act defensive. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to be more careful, more skillful when I'm saying that. So even these kinds of little interactions, I'm just picking a couple from my own experience, they influence people, right? So influence is very different from authority. So if you're actually the CEO of a company or something like that, then you have authority in that company. Now, people with authority, they have power, right? And when somebody has power, people tend to look to them a lot. There are these studies when you have a group of monkeys sitting around, and they'll look at the alpha a lot, like many times per minute. They're just like, what are they doing? Where are they? And so where someone is like the official leader, people look to them a lot. And so then they naturally have influence. People are very influenced by their behavior. But I just find it a bit helpful to separate between authority and like being in a powerful position versus influence, because even if you're not in a powerful position, you can still have influence on the people around you by, for example, not panicking or being kind or listening or paying attention, or but often when people talk about, a leader, they're talking about not just somebody who's influential, but someone who is influential in the face of a difficult situation. So the word leader kind of means you're going first. So what does that mean to go first? It means you're not following anybody else. And so you're going first. Now, the challenge with going first is that it is scary. You're going into the unknown, right? If you're second, and you're walking in the dark and you're, well, there's fewer surprises if you're not going first. So leaders operate going first, which by definition means that they don't quite know what's coming. And so they're operating in the face of a lot of uncertainty. And that's scary, right? It's scary to not know what's happening. We're operating in the face of a lot of uncertainty. Now, there's this famous saying, I quoted it before, it's a physicist, I think Niels Bohr, he said, prediction is very difficult. especially about the future. Prediction is very difficult, especially about the future, right? The future is, in a sense, completely unknown. Like, we can pretend that we know what's going to happen in the future. We have this picture, these mental pictures and so forth. But in a sense, the future is always unknown. So many meditators, meditation teachers and so forth, they have a big emphasis on living in the present. Now, what does that mean, living in the present? It means changing your perspective to see. Normally we tend to think we're living in time, right? Like, we live in time. We're sort of balanced on this current moment, right? But we're living in the sort of grand space of time. There's all this past behind us. There's all this future ahead of us. And we're living in, this span of all time, right? When you say living in the present, it feels like, oh, you're pretending that there is no past or future. But that's not quite the meaning. The meaning is recognizing that the past is actually our memory of the past. And the future is our imagination about the future. It's our mental picture about the future. We don't know what the future is, but we can imagine it. And we can remember the past, but all of those things are going on in the present. And so the reality of our situation is that we are here right now in the present, and we're having some memory of the past. We're having some memory, some imagination about the future, but those are actually also in the present right now. And one way you can know that is by when your mind changes, when you're thinking. So when your mind changes, thinking about the past or the future in a different way. So I've used this example before. You wake up and you're a bit depressed, and the past looks bad, the future looks bad, the present looks bad, everything looks bad, right? But then if you wake up and you're a bit optimistic, then the past is okay, the future's okay, the present's okay. So the whole of space and time changes depending on our mental state, the mental space that we're in. So that's when you're living in the present, you're living with a lot of uncertainty, right? Because you recognize that you don't really know the future. The future is not already set. The future is not already existing. It's unfolding out of the present. It's really just the present moment that's unfolding a lot. And the reason it's a bit challenging to live in the present is that it's we're living with a lot of uncertainty. We're living with a lot more uncertainty. Like when we pretend that we know what happened in the past. We pretend that we know what's going to happen in the future, but actually, all we have is the present moment, and we don't know what it's going to change into, what it's going to turn into. Whether it's going to turn into something good or bad and so forth. So we're actually living with a lot of uncertainty. So that's kind of one example of how just meditating gets you more comfortable with living in the space of uncertainty. I'm not sure if I explained that well, but we think we know what's going to happen in the future. We have some mental picture of what's going to happen in the future. We don't actually know what's going to happen in the future. Our life has unfolded in ways we wouldn't have predicted a year ago, a month ago even. We don't know really what's going to happen. So we're all living in the face of uncertainty. And so the characteristic of a leader, being calm, being confident in the face of uncertainty, is something that we can all cultivate right now, no matter what kind of position we're in, or if we have some authority or no authority or whatever, just by recognizing that we can be calm and peaceful right now because we're already living with a lot of uncertainty. We're already living, in this world that's unfolding in ways we don't really know, we can't predict. And just learning to be calm and peaceful is in a sense, it's the same as learning to be fearless. Um, Other things that help to learn to be fearless are when you encounter a difficult situation, but even when you encounter the difficult situation, you don't panic, right? Or you can turn it into something good, something better, right? Something good can come out of that. Um, so, in this situation where I had uh, caused people to worry that we'd lost a deal, something good came out of it because, well, first of all, people appreciated, oh, this guy doesn't seem to get defensive. And that's a nice quality. So I got some better friends through that. But also, it just allowed us to go back and to discuss what was the real situation, and sort of opened up a lot of new possibilities. So when a seemingly difficult situation arises, if you can get familiar with processing it, and it'll be okay, and I can be calm through this and so forth, then in a sense, what you're doing is you're learning that nothing can happen that you can't handle. And leaders don't have psychic knowledge about the future, but they may have a lot of confidence that they can deal with difficult situations that may come up. And they may have a lot of confidence that they can make decisions even in the face of uncertainty, and they can deal with the consequences. So they're just very, very familiar with thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, let's do it anyway. And they do something even though they don't know what's going to happen. And whatever comes out of that, they deal with it. It's a complete disaster. One of the most famous teachers, influencers in the startup world, the IT startup world, and if you're looking for like hot business trends these days, IT startups are it. So there's a guy named Eric Ries. Eric Ries, he's known as the founder of the lean startup movement. He's revolutionized how people thought about lean startups and how to be an IT startup. His claim to fame, Eric Ries's claim to fame, is running a whole string of failed startups. He's not famous because he, was the founder of Microsoft or Google and he made $1 billion. Whatever. He's famous because he had a whole string of completely failed businesses. Like, why did they all collapse? What he did a really, really good job of is learning from that. He did such a good job of learning from that he was asked to be like a professor of business at, I think, Stanford, and then he influenced this whole generations of business thinkers about how to, and basically his whole idea is that your goal is to learn. The goal of your business is to learn, and basically you need to spend as little money as possible in as short a period of time as possible to figure out whether people will actually pay money for whatever your big idea was. So that's like the essence of the lean startup movement. Spend as little money as possible, do it as fast as possible, and just go as quickly as you can to figure out whether anybody would be willing to pay money for your brilliant idea. Because normally, you've got a brilliant idea and maybe somebody gives you $1 million, but then you spend all your $1 million and then you find out only at the end, that it wasn't such a brilliant idea, or that people wouldn't spend. So what that means is that, like leadership, whether business leadership or IT leadership or personal leadership or whatever, we can take the same approach. We can take the same mentality. Like, our job is to try stuff and learn and see what happens, to try something new, learn, see what happens, and then gradually increase our ability to deal with the consequences. And so it's helpful to make small experiments, right? Not to do things that are too radical at one time, but like incrementally learn and try things and be peaceful at the same time and calm at the same time. And so that's it's a skill to operate in the face of uncertainty. So I think, anyway, it's helpful for me to think in this way because I tend to get uncomfortable when I don't know what I'm doing. and when I don't know what's going to happen. It's probably everybody does, right? Um, and and I feel like my job is to kind of know what's going on, and increasingly, as I'm gaining more responsibility um, in my organizations and so forth, increasingly I know less about what's actually going on. This is the characteristic of a CEO of a corporation. They know less about the details of the business than every other single person in that business. Everybody at every level below them knows more about the details than the CEO does. But the CEO needs to be the most confident person operating in the face of uncertainty. And the most confident in sort of trusting and delegating the people around them. And as a result, they actually are more powerful leaders because they, they're not trying to pretend that they know everything. They're not trying to pretend that they're controlling everything. So the world is too complicated for us to know everything. We need to operate in the face of uncertainty. But even in the face of uncertainty, there are certain constants, there are certain stable truths, like that we can deal with difficult situations if they come up, that not panicking is always a better option than panicking. I'm more or less convinced that in every situation, including fires and disasters and so forth, not panicking is a better response than panicking. If you've got examples that are exceptions to that, let me know. But is a kind of wisdom. It's a kind of wisdom, and that wisdom enables us to be a beneficial influence for the people around us, and be increasingly useful for the people around us. Okay, all right. So that was kind of what I wanted to share. What's top of mind today, based on not knowing what's going on in the company around me, having to operate with a lot of uncertainty. That's kind of top of mind today, but trying to be peaceful in the face of uncertainty. I guess just as a couple of other data points, my many spiritual teachers, if you look at like the gurus of the gurus, like the greatest spiritual teachers, they're totally clueless about normal worldly things, right? Like my main spiritual teacher struggled to use a telephone. It's like, how do you, like they're just, but they're not bothered by those kinds of details. They're more focused on this internal composure. And, you don't have to go to that extreme, right? But we can still adopt an aspect of that, that flexibility, that we can operate in the face of uncertainty, be competent in our daily lives, operate with uncertainty, and still, and still be peaceful. So, okay. So why don't we take a bit of time just to let this settle in with some meditation. And I'd invite you to take any aspects of this talk that moved your mind, that had some influence for you, and just let them settle in. So I'll be a bit limited with the guidance I give in the meditation, but just invite you to reflect on any of the points that I've shared. Thinking, how can I be a better influence on the people around us? How can we give kindness to the people around us? Increase our ability to act in the face of uncertainty. So again, for our last meditation, we find a comfortable position. Take a deep breath in and out. Just invite ourselves to relax. So we can recall any points from the teaching that you found helpful. And just allow them to settle in a bit more. If our mind wanders, we can just recall any of these points that we found helpful and just let them settle in a bit more. If our mind gets distracted, we just take a deep breath in and out. Just reset our attention. We can think we're always operating in the face of uncertainty. That's normal. We can be relaxed and peaceful, even in uncertainty. It's just a practice. And then finally, we can think through the time we've spent here. Our minds have changed. Our life has moved in a slightly different direction. What kinds of good results could unfold for ourselves and others if we continue down a beneficial path? Imagine what are the best possible results that might arise from the tiny changes that happened just in this session. And then we can open our eyes and rise from our meditation.